we're really excited. I think we've been doing this, Roger, for a number of years where we wanted to, at the end of the year, discuss what's next for product management. And we're bringing you today a panel, which we'll introduce shortly. The goal of this kind of webinar is really, it's not for us just to talk, it's really for us to interact. So please, you've already used the chat feature, use the chat, use Q&A. We want to answer your questions. We actually have a number of questions already we fielded from registrations and LinkedIn on product management trends in 2025. So we'll start with those, but we want to bring in your questions as they come. We'll do, like I mentioned, the introduction for our speaker shortly once Amira can join. But the overall agenda for today, we're going to have questions along product management skills, product management leadership. We have a number on AI and product management, and also others on data and strategy and managing cross-functional teams. So quite a number of topics for us to discuss, but you don't have to ask questions in those topics. We'll take them as they come. If you feel comfortable, I think there's a raise hand feature. I'll even bring you on and unmute you if that works for you. If not, chat, Q&A, wherever you'd like to submit your question, please do so. You can even start now if you have a burning one that you've come to this webinar with. First, so I hope most of you know who Productside is, but for those of you who don't, or maybe are not familiar with our new name, we were formerly known as 280 Group. We really are an outcome-driven product partner. We like to work with teams and individuals on improving their product management maturity. When we work with companies, we like to really get to know what's going on in the company, assess their gaps, and create a training program that really impacts change and creates change in behaviors. That's really who we are. And on the individual level, I'm just so proud. We recently ran a certification outcome survey, and there are true career outcomes from our training and coaching services. This webinar, as I mentioned already, is really a Q&A format. We're going to start with questions that we already have from the audience, from the registrants and LinkedIn audience. And please ask your questions as well. I'll also answer the one we get most frequently, which is, can I watch this later? And the answer is yes. The webinar will be posted to our website. I think everybody who registered will get an email. There will be plenty of ways to watch after the recording is over. And also connect with us on LinkedIn. I think Productside has one of the biggest LinkedIn groups. We actually have over 60,000 followers at this point. And there are daily posts from different people all about how to do product management, leadership topics. And it's also a really great place to network. So if you're looking for your next opportunity or the next step in your career, this is a great community for you.
Great resource.
So with that, I see Amira. Amira, were you able to come back to us? All right.
Yes, but I'm on my phone, so I'm not sure how my image is showing. So I tried my best with tech. It didn't work, but we'll roll with it.
Yeah, we will roll with it. And with that, then I'm going to actually move back and introduce our panelists. So you all know me, I hope at this point. I'm the CEO of Productside. My name is Rina Alexin. I've been running Productside now for just over 6 years. Can you believe it, Roger?
I know, it's awesome.
And I'm calling in from usually sunny Miami, Florida. Roger, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go in order, Joe, Amira, and then Joe.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Roger Snyder. I'm a principal consultant and trainer at Productside. I've been with the company for 8 years. And have a number of different roles. I love helping our clients, both private and public students, get better at the craft of product management. I am based in the Santa Cruz Mountains, south of San Francisco in California. It is sunny today, actually, but it is cold. So that's why I've got my vest on this morning. But looking forward to a great conversation. Looking forward to being able to help answer questions. We'll sift through the tea leaves of what we think is coming in 2025.
Amira.
Hi, I'm Amira Youssef. I'm currently calling from Brooklyn, New York. It's a very gloomy day and rainy, so I'm envious of the sunshine. I'm currently the VP of product at an AI SaaS startup. Prior to that, I was 8 years with Microsoft, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Excellent. I'm Joe Gali. I'm the Director of Product Delivery Excellence at Baxter Healthcare. I'm based in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, where the low today was 2 degrees. So, Roger, it is not cold where you are located. Just want to make sure I set that up, right? It is not cold.
Okay, 39 is not as cold as 2.
39. If there's 39 degrees right now in Pewaukee, people would be out in their flip-flops and shorts. So, very jealous of where you are located, but 20 years in the product management space. And I was also a former principal consultant and trainer at this wonderful company called Productside. So I'm very excited to be back as a guest.
All right. Well, everyone, yeah, cold or not, I saw someone's from Vancouver in our audience and, good luck there as well. Okay, so everyone, at this point, I mentioned we did get a lot of questions from registrants and from LinkedIn. And I want to start with a question here from Diana from her company Product Gold on product management skills. So taking a look at 2025, given customer expectations are potentially shifting towards more hyper-personalized, experience-driven type of products, what do you think the necessary skills could be to set someone apart next year? And I'm going to start this question with Joe.
So ultimately, right, so there's a narrative out there, Rina, that says that product management is dead. And I want to debunk that myth because we're really going through a renaissance. And as product managers, there's a need and a trend where we're getting closer to the customer. We have to have greater empathy with them. We have to be aligned with them. We have to leverage, and you're going to talk about some of the AI trends later on in this webinar, but we have to use that extra time, that efficiency that we're gaining utilizing AI tools, so that way we can spend more time understanding the needs of our customers and disseminating the data and looking at the trends and trying to be a little bit more proactive, so that way we can deliver a more personalized experience, more personalized products to meet the very growing needs of our customer base.
So Amira, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I would like to also echo the myth of product management is dead. We will always need people to manage products experiences. It will evolve. How the shape it is like how it was done versus the future. But kind of thinking more of the personalization, the way kind of I want to think about it is more as why is this trend emerging? It's people's lives are busy. I don't have time to look for just using a Netflix, it was at the end of my day, I don't have time to really look through all and sift through all the comments, find something I want to watch for 30 minutes or an hour. So I think I always like to flip it as why is this happening? And then how do we respond? So accordingly, what the PMs need to understand, why is this happening? Is hey, you need to make people's lives easier. I need to find something that I learn my interest, so I can find something quickly to watch for 30 minutes or an hour at the end of my day. That's my persona, so kind of help me make my life easier. So that's kind of the first starting point that I would like the PMs to start thinking about. And from there, kind of really the skills is more how to use the data that you're collecting from the user to kind of deliver that experience, but really kind of understand why are we doing that it's not personalization for the sake of it, but really going to the core of understanding.
So then I'm going to say, so from your perspective, it's really going back to, like Joe's saying, core product management skills, understanding the value you're creating for the users, and then still, I guess, really, I think you're right, data at scale in this case. It's what is the important data?
Yes.
All right, Roger, what about you?
So
What
batting
skills?
cleanup on this one, I completely
Yeah.
agree with Amira and Joe, but I will add experimentation, right?
yeah. Yep.
All this data gathering is vital, but we need to conduct more frequent experiments and little tiny acts of discovery to gather that data and do it with customers
Yeah.
any way we can, right? With focus groups, with small groups of user groups, with folks that you talk to, interviews, day in the life, right? All of these skills are skills that product managers need to develop, especially day in the life and interviewing, and then get help from product marketing and from UX teams that can help you conduct these experiments more effectively. But we've got to get way more experimental. This has been a trend that this year especially, I've been spending time with a lot of private clients this year, and they're all weak in this area. They need to be experimenting more frequently because of this rising set of expectations. Customers are expecting every experience now to be just as easy as whatever they're doing on their smartphone or with their smart speaker now, right? Their interactions are now more natural than ever. And they're going to expect that from all of things that they interact with. And we as product managers have got to bring that to them.
Well, and
Go
if I
ahead, Joe.
can, Rena, just real quick on to build off of that with Roger. Roger's 100% correct, but we've got to get our teams and our leadership to understand the value
Yeah.
of experimentation.
Mhm.
Too
Good point.
often, leadership looks at it like a stall tactic. They don't understand how we're de-risking their very valuable investment by doing the experiment. So us as product leaders, we have to be able to clearly articulate the with them for our leadership team to give us the bandwidth to do that experimentation. That's like, we've got to get the other folks around us to understand the value and the impact, because so much of us are being asked to do more with less. Our resources are under extreme scrutiny. They want to make sure they're getting the highest ROI. So we've got to be able to help them understand the why behind those experiments.
Yeah, good point.
So I want to go back to Roger because, and Joe, this is a really good segue. So we also received question about leadership. So we kind of just talked about what should product managers think about in terms of their skill set, but given what we're talking about, Roger, what do you think product leaders should be focused on?
Well, we start from the point that product management is a team sport. Okay. This isn't just the product manager, right? This is a whole team of folks, a growing team, right? Over the years, we've talked about triads and we've talked about the need to always be working with user experience. Now we need to be working with AI experts and with data scientists, right? So it's a team sport. And you've got to have this collaboration. And that means that you have to have strong skills in influencing without authority. Now, that has been a staple of product management ever since I started over 25 years ago, right? But it honestly is rising in urgency because now we even have a wider diversity of folks that we have got to work with, speak their language, and learn how to influence them and want them to join us on this journey, right? Show them the customer needs, get them excited about solving customer problems, show them an outcome tree that connects the dots between the little project they happen to be working on and the business outcome that the company's seeking and the product outcome that we're looking for our customers to make our customers happy, put a smile on their face. So it really is, you've got to bring this big picture understanding, share the data you've got, get people excited and fired up and motivated to want to be part of this team. And that, I think, is at the heart of influence without authority.
Mira, I see you nodding your head a lot. Do you agree?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I definitely think like it kind of going back, like the softer skills are going to be more and more important. Like I would say, so definitely collaboration, like showing like the team, like kind of bringing them together. Hey, why we need to do this? But I would add also kind of more, like there will be more leadership and like critical thinking, like really development. Like it's not like, hey, we didn't need to follow this process. No, it's like kind of this is where AI will come and play and take off a lot of the heavy lifting, but it will be more about the why and like let's get together, let's collaborate. What is this thing? Why are we building it? So I think it will be a lot more in terms of these softer skills. And if you don't have some of these skills, you really, this is the time. It's almost don't invest in the technology. I mean, you need to always learn the latest technology, but invest in those skills, because this will be the human element is very hard to replicate. And I would say for more advanced PMs, I would also kind of say it's more kind of that entrepreneurial part is like P&L, like this business metrics is like kind of like, what is the AAR? Is this really moving the needle, or we're just building for the sake of building experiences? So I think that softer skills, like this is where we'll kind of more kind of focus less process, but more kind of that softer skills where we need to develop more and hone the skills.
So that's very much in line with what Roger's also saying in terms of influence and leading and making sure the team is amped up. Joe, you see, or at least from now in your vantage point at Baxter, you have a kind of like a sense of a lot of different product leaders, right? So is that what you expect of them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there was actually a stat from McKinsey, and it said something to the effect of teams with strong soft skills experience 40% better collaboration and 30% fewer project delays. Right. So there's a lot more research, quantifiable research, that talks about the value in that investment in soft skills, meaning like negotiation, making trade-offs, just, cross collaboration, working with stakeholders. I think more and more companies are starting to recognize if we can make that investment, we'll see a direct impact to the bottom line, because we're eliminating a lot of wasted meetings and a lot of duplicate work, because we're getting better alignment, transparency. I know we're playing buzzword bingo here with all these terms, but it's the fact. Right now, that there are reports out there from McKinsey that can show a direct correlation. So now I think organizations, and where I've seen across my career, I think organizations are going to start to recognize the value of investing back in their people and the value it's going to have on the bottom line. Because many times there was a gap. I couldn't see like the ROI behind the training and the impact to the profitability or to, getting projects out on time.
So you mentioned training, but are there other ways of like just thinking about maybe you're a senior PM and you're wanting to step into a leadership role? How do you develop these soft skills?
Gosh. So I was talking to some other friends. A lot of it just comes with experience, but building a strong mentorship network. I can't undersell like how critical it is to have, I think you used the term one time with me, Rina, your personal board of directors, right? It's your posse. It's people that you can talk to, whether it be in person or over a virtual coffee, old business bosses or friends. It comes with experience, and it comes with just leveraging your network and asking questions. And sometimes it's just kind of the road you live, right? The journey you take as a product leader. Well, you'll develop some of those skills along the way because you've made some mistakes, and you're going to be like, all right, what am I going to do to not avoid, what can I do to avoid that happening again?
Yeah, and I would add to here also, like I +1 for Joe. I would also kind of, there's a lot of way you can build this like muscle. Like you think of something you want to volunteer outside work. It doesn't have to just be work, or, in the local community you believe in is like, hey, I want to volunteer, take this like scope, even at work, if you're not in a leadership position, like go and tell your manager, hey, I want to lead this initiative. Is it a give back campaign? Can be anything, or this cross functional where you can kind of, and you do kind of learn by mistakes. So I love like celebrating failures. Is like, hey, I learned more from my failures than my successes. So I think there are kind of like there's other opportunities outside work that you can take like almost on the job training. And there is a community, I'm part of it, is Women in Product, that kind of we like coach women. So, but there's many communities that there are available for product folks to get more mentorship and direct, hey, this is a particular like challenge I need to work through. So I think with mentorship, one advice I would say is like be specific on what you want to hone, because it was like, hey, I like don't influence very well. This is a particular versus kind of just, hey, I need mentoring is much harder for the mentor.
I definitely agree. We actually have a question here from, I hope I'm saying your name right, Ili Patel, which is about mentorships. Is there something in the Phoenix area, or I guess, how does somebody find these opportunities locally?
It's a great question. Like, I think the way I approach it, like for my own mentorship, I look kind of for leaders that aspire me. I would say the benefit now of the remote working is that, you know, like the whole world is your oyster. So kind of more pick the leaders that kind of like inspire you, and also kind of the communities you're part of. But, you know, I wouldn't kind of necessarily, I mean, the face-to-face is beneficial, but just given the time and speed of like how people work, I would just leverage the online communities, because there's a lot of communities there that can provide. I mean, Women in Product do provide like twice a year coaching. So that, but there's many more. So
Yeah, I would add, ask your friends. That's how I got introduced to some of my mentors. Is I asked my friends in the space, and I'm like, hey, do you know anyone who would, you know, that you've worked with or you can account for that would be a great mentor? Use them as an introduction. That's another way you can do it as well.
I would add that you want to look around in your area for either product management associations or product tanks. And those allow you to just mingle with folks like yourself. And oftentimes they will have guest speakers. And so, to what Joe and Amir were talking about, listen to them, just get a chance to mingle with folks. You're going to find folks who have skills in areas that you want to grow in. And that it's a great resource, a great pool to hopefully find a good mentor in, as well as a good place to keep your own interests and curiosity bubbling as you just see what's going on, what people are talking about, what are the guest speakers talking about. Get into a product management community.
And if one doesn't exist, I recommend starting one. If you're looking, then there's a likelihood that other people are too. So you can always start small with like a little meetup. And you can find people also on LinkedIn. You can easily just reach out to people. Just the one thing that I always say when we talk about mentorship is that when you're asking for somebody's time, make it worth it.
Yep.
And don't expect them to chase you back. Like you will have to do a lot of the chasing, and also tell them the good stuff, like that's coming out of them spending their time with you, because oftentimes I think some people just give up on that relationship because they're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, and I'd like to add what Joe mentioned as the board of directors, and you're kind of create it. Like, yeah, create your own, like your peers are going through similar to what you're, and you kind of like can like bounce ideas off each other. So the, you know, peer-to-peer kind of mentorship coaching is very powerful also. So kind of create your own. So I love that.
Yeah. So we actually have this question come in from Karthika, which I think it became pretty popular maybe a week or two ago on LinkedIn to say, actually it became pretty popular to say everything is dead, right? Change management is agile is dead. But now it's middle management is dead. So there's this concept of there are companies right now that are kind of flattening the hierarchy and removing the layer of middle management. And potentially with AI, that could mean that there are multiple rungs of the career ladder that are missing. It could be junior level roles, right, that could be displaced by AI. But it also could be this middle management layer. And for somebody that has career aspirations of team leadership, and as we just spoke about, it's so important to get that experience. What can they do to position themselves well to still get team or like people management and leadership experience? Amira, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I would say similar thing. Like, I think I would like to think of it. It's not like middle management. Like, I like to think about it differently. Kind of why is this happening? Is like, you know, with AI being more efficient, you know, we do like more with less. So you need less people in reality in jobs. It will create different opportunities, but in your current organization, the structure will flatten. But to me, kind of thinking about like leadership in a new way. It's not kind of about like, oh my God, I have like a team of 20, or, you know, it's not about the numbers anymore from leadership. It's more kind of like, how are you owning an area? So I would have the conversation with your managers is like, hey, I want to lead this initiative. I want to lead this like cross-functional, like whether it's efficiency, learning, training. There's so many opportunities to see what is your interest. But for me, leadership is taking that ownership and end to end and run with it. So that is what is kind of for me is the new leadership is like, and if you think of it even like, 10 years, 5 years ago, well, you promote people into management when they're performing it in their current role. It's that you don't have to have that official title, but kind of that ownership or, whether it's functional technology, depending on your product. So I would really have the conversation with your manager is like, hey, this is where I want to develop the skills. And the other kind of lens that I like to think is like almost like that concept of paying it forward. It's like in the concept of, okay, I am kind of like still like maybe middle of my career is like, why don't you coach and mentor someone that is just fresh out of grad and at like undergrad and kind of like mentor them. And this is where, again, you're going to hone up that leadership skill. So I think there's lots of opportunities that we can hone that like perspective.
Roger, what do you think? Is middle management dying, and what do you do?
So I guess maybe with age comes some perspective. We've had these cycles before, right? The sky is falling, middle management's dying. I've been through that cycle once or twice, right? And it comes back, right? Yes, there are belt tightenings. Absolutely. We are being asked all the time to do more with less. But I think to the earlier part of our conversation, what we discover is we need those soft skills. We need those capabilities to bring people together and coordinate them in a fashion that brings together a great team of people to create a great purpose and product. What Amira was just talking about in terms of like leading a tiger team or leading some sort of a special initiative, product managers are particularly well suited for that because they're used to influence without authority. I'm just going to bring that back. And everybody's afraid of AI. And honestly, I think we're going to get to that later, but you definitely need to build up your AI skill set so that you aren't left behind. But it does mean that the soft skills become even more important in that world, right? You're going to use AI as an assistant. Absolutely. And trust me, it's a great assistant. I'm using it every day. But your human judgment and your skills and the ethics and moral questions that we're going to have to deal with in the coming years are going to require more people in those areas, not fewer. So yes, we go through these cycles. And I do think that we learn from those cycles and we learn about the value of human connection. We learn about the value of being able to influence without authority, have empathy, understand our customers with empathy. So ride this out. And while you're doing it, build up some of the skills we've just been talking about, because you will then be well positioned when the time comes to be able to take on more responsibility. And like Amira was saying, it's not about the team size. It's about the leverage you gain by taking a group of people and producing a great outcome.
Well said, Roger and Amira. So we're going to talk about AI shortly, but before we do, Joe, I've heard this stated now a few times by the panelists, including yourself, do more with less. And we actually have a question here from Rudy. That 2025 might be following that same trend that we had in 2024, where expectations are set, but the ability to deliver with smaller teams is going to be tested. So what are some strategies that product managers and leaders can consider to accomplish doing more with less?
Well, I think from what I've seen across different industries, right, it doesn't really matter. I mean, everyone thinks that their company's challenges with product management and, doing more with less, it's unique to them, and it's not. I think as product leaders, we have to be hyper focused on two things. The product outcomes that we're going to deliver and how those product outcomes are tied to the business outcomes that's going to impact the business, right? The more you can do that, the more you can tie back your value or the value of the work that you're doing to the bottom line, right? I think what'll end up happening is more and more will be put on your plate because you're demonstrating that connection between what output you're delivering and the impact that's going to have on the business line. And I think, or on the bottom line for the business. And I think all of us are being asked to do more with less. So I think we have to put our hats on and be more of like a business line manager or a general manager. We have to understand that connection point and be able to clearly articulate how we're delivering value to our users and how that's tied back to profitability, efficiency, revenue, et cetera. We have to be very succinct, even in our conversations with our leaders, so they know we're not just getting stuff done for the sake of getting it done.
Does anybody want to chime in on this question of doing more? What's like a practical, actionable step that somebody can take to do more with less?
It's a good lead into the next topic of talking about AI, but I just want to leverage what Joe was talking about as well in terms of you get much more motivated team members when they can see how their work contributes to the larger whole, right? So when you are really conversant in those numbers, in the ROI, in the customer needs, in what the benefit is for your particular company, and you can share that visually, tell a story about what the work you're doing, even when it's like reporting tools or API instrumentation, whatever those things might seem like they're kind of drudgery kind of work, if you can then paint the picture of how that API or that new report is going to be able to connect to the ultimate outcome of putting a smile on the customer's face and putting money in the company's pockets, that's when people get excited. And you as a product manager are crucial to making those connections.
I would just add one additional thought, plus one to all, is just like, it's an opportunity to revisit what you're doing today. If something is not value added, like, drop it. Like,
Fail fast.
I think that was kind of just like, sometimes and it's part of the process, is like we're entrenched running during the day, but it was like, okay, got it. This is limited resources. Let's take a step back. What do we not like? We have to eliminate something. We have 24 hours where we need to sleep, see our families, get a rest, and work. So it was kind of step back, and it's a prioritization process, but on your time. So
Yeah, very, very good point. There's always something you can cut out. There definitely is. All right, so let's get into the AI questions. And everybody that's in the audience, please, if you do have a burning question about AI and product management, please put it in the chat. But we're going to start with a question here from Dennis from Rocket Mortgage. So this was a general one, but how do you see the growing trends in AI and automation shape the PM role? We get this one a lot, but what's going to be potentially different about product management in 2025? And Amira, I'm going to pick on you.
I feel like we kind of alluded a lot, like kind of to our conversation, like kind of the first for me is like, I do want to kind of emphasize the PM role is not disappearing, because I'm seeing headlines, PM is dead. We'll always, products still exist. We'll need people to manage it. But I do think it's evolved, and that's like always happened. Like, I mean, if you think of any industry, any job, it's kind of really changes and evolves as we go along. And I do think, like, kind of being level-headed, yes, companies will need less people, so this will happen. But at the same time, AI was creating a lot of new opportunities. Everybody kind of, for a startup, you can create your company quite quickly. You don't need a big team because you can leverage AI and do things efficiently. So I feel like kind of is like to level set just the playing field. Yes, there is evolve, but it's not going to be extinct. It's just like we have to evolve with what is the needs today. So thinking more kind of the softer skills that we spoke again about is, I really do think like the PM role, folks that are focused on their day-to-day, that it's more like a project manager, process oriented. Yes, you are in trouble. Like, you need to up level your skill set and thinking of these softer skills, up level the technical areas. So yes, from that perspective, yes, that is not going to be required. But the more kind of what is required, these strategic decisions, like even though like AI can, for example, as a use case, can analyze the data very quickly, like but there's a judgment call. Like, hey, is this data accurate? Was there data biases? Did I put the guardrails right? These are all human, very nuanced, contextual, like this is deep analytical. And that's where kind of the great PMs will shine, because it's less about Did you do your user stories? Did you put Jira? Did you like, I mean, you need them. I'm not undermining, but this is where the AI can take these mundane, repetitive tasks, and we can, like, as humans, we're more creative by nature. We can, like, oh my God, let's brainstorm and generate ideas and spend time more on the value add versus is like kind of and almost think about it. For me, the way I think it is like, what are the tasks that I always wanted to delegate? I have no interest to do these. It's like, yeah, delegate them to AI. They will do it efficiently. And you know, you get to spend your time on more like the creative part. So going forward in product development, I mean, I guess I like to think about it in three areas. Like people, like I spoke about it as kind of on the tasks. Like what are the processes we can automate? If there's a report we're always generating, can like the AI automate it? I just need to check it. And the key part really, this is where the big value add will be in your products. And it's not just like, hey, I'm adding a chat bot on it. Is like, how can AI actually improve my users, like, you know, whether it's in personalization or in the end product. And that will be the biggest, like, kind of like PMs that leverage that mindset is like, how do I build it in the functionality of my product? You know, that is a key killer. And actually, frankly, we need it because I don't think that we have cracked it yet. So these are some of the thoughts.
Amira, I really like that. I've heard somebody say that, especially the part where you're saying, what tasks can I delegate? I've heard somebody call AI of, you have essentially a college intern who knows nothing, like knows almost nothing about your business, but works so hard 24/7. What will you give to them? Right. And I really like that perspective.
Yeah, I love it. Yes.
Yeah. Joe, do you think that there are going to be elements of the product? I think we were kind of mentioned a few, but are there elements of product management that are better served by leveraging AI?
I mean, leveraging your customer data, like, just looking at trends, predictability, trying to use AI to help you be more proactive in the needs or serving the needs of your customers, I think is gold. It's pure gold because you can leverage the data and start to identify trends and really up your game as a storyteller, like really up your game in terms of how you're communicating with your team. You just got to make sure you've got the right data and it's structured correct. Like you got to have a tight relationship with your data guy or data person in your organization, but definitely around the storytelling piece of it. Like Amira said, automating some even easy tasks like building epics, building user stories. So there's both the operational, like day to day, but then there is the helping you get ahead of. It's really about building out your backlog, like having a more bountiful backlog. So instead of it only being 6 months out, maybe it's 12, 18 months out because you're starting to see things. And then back to Roger's point, then you can get really fancy and start thinking about the tiny acts of discovery you can do now to validate some of those trends, to know what you are going to be doing in 6 months.
Thank you. All right, team, we have a question here from David. David, thanks for this question. Given more AI and operational efficiency, do you think there will be more demand for fractionals? So fractional product managers in partnership with a fractional CTO. That's an interesting question. So rather than hiring full time, it sounds like could a company get by with a part-time resource in product management? Roger, do you have any? Or Amira, go ahead.
No, I just think the fractional trend has been on like for like a few years right now. And I kind of the way I think it's more kind of from a startup organization. It's really comes down to the resources. If I'm starting my organization, I can't afford like a VP, CPO level. So I'm gonna go fractional. I think it's less related with the AI. Is like, hey, it's like, can I get the right resources of the team, and I don't have a need to get a full time. So I kind of more see it's a different trend. Is like, how do you scale in a startup environment while you have very limited resources, but you need the expertise.
All right. There was another comment here in chat that Marcus wrote just now that the prospects of AI in product management are not obvious. So does anybody here have a good idea on how to use it? And
Yeah.
Roger, I mean, I think we go into a little bit of this in our AI course. So what do you think?
Absolutely, right? So let me give you several examples, right? So I used it most recently to do some proto persona work, right? To develop to flesh out a persona. I gave it context. I mean, this is a big part of what you have to do as a product manager is be really good at how do I become a good conversationalist with my chatbot, all right? People call it prompt engineering, and that gives it the technical term, but really you want to get good at your conversation. To what Joy was talking about earlier, bring your data, right? Now be careful with it. You want to be working maybe with a private instance, depends on what your enterprise rules are about sharing private information, right? So you want to know that you're doing this properly. But the more data you can give to your chatbot assistant, to your AI assistant, the more effective it can become. I used it to create some proto personas. It messed up on a few things. Okay, right? Remember, it's an assistant. It is not the answer box. All right. But then I gave it more information. And actually, we have several really sharp folks on here at Productside. Like Dean taught me, look, you can actually give the AI a score. You can give it feedback. You can tell it, you know what, that answer wasn't great. And here's where it wasn't great. And I would love a little more help here and there. And it will listen and grow in its abilities when you give it a score. Like that was a 2 out of 10 there. Copilot, let's try to do better next time. And so I iterated with it a couple of times to the point then where once we established, because I was working on this one with a pharmaceuticals company. Okay. And so once I established it, look, Boston is where a lot of these companies are. Because the answer from the AI was always, yeah, they're based in New York City. I'm like, hey, come on. And once I explained, look, where are the biggest top 10 pharmaceutical companies? And they said, oh, they're in Boston. I'm like, well, see, that's where we should have our product manager be. And then when I said generate a picture of that product manager, all the backgrounds were of Boston cityscapes. I didn't ask it to do that. It figured it out. All right. So when you give it feedback, you can get some amazing results, but you've got to be engaged with it, interactive. So prototypes of personas, storyboarding. We just saw an example last week of an amazing storyboard that was generated in one of our classes by our students, right? Of nicely drawn with a great story arc. And then that can become something that you can use for an experiment. Let's put that storyboard in front of customers and see what their feedback is. So I could go on, right? Requirements development, non-functional requirements, regulatory compliance. There are lots of things that we can do as product managers every day. Just start thinking about every problem that you're addressing. How could I bring an AI chatbot into that conversation?
So Amira, you did mention that a lot of the value also gets unlocked when you can find a valuable way in which to incorporate AI into your product. And you run an AI-based product, right? So do you have advice on what maybe some opportunities or pitfalls to avoid when product managers are being asked to consider what are those valuable directions for AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I think I would say I have a customer first mindset. So that's my starting point. And in all honesty, like the product kind of really was born from the pain point. It's like creating digital content at scale is really time consuming. Like that's the core problem is like, do I want to elevate my personal brand on like LinkedIn? Sure. It takes time to write content. It's like you write content on Word, then you put it like maybe like now in Chat GPT, then go find in Google Docs some pictures. Then I need to schedule it. And if I'm cross-platform, then I need to do this across platform and maybe fine tune. Like this is very like time consuming. And if you're not very like, I mean, I'm not talking about the creators, like just on a day-to-day, I just want to elevate. That is a really hard, like kind of time consuming, intimidating. Did I write the right thing? And that's really where the product was born. This was the pain point that we were working on. And really kind of actually AI made this product come true, because without AI, we couldn't really solve that problem, because this is where AI was creating that content at scale more efficiently than a human touch. And then kind of the challenge was more that we're working with, then how do you make the AI more personalization that we were just talking? And that kind of trade-off is like, in the context of the scenario, is like, well, you need to give me more information as a user. So I learn your language, your behavior, your brand in order for the AI. And I think this is part of the education that we're kind of working with, is like, hey, AI is not a magic wand. It's like almost like a human being. Like, and excuse my language, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't give it right instructions, clear, articulate, like, I mean, it is intelligent, but you know, you need to give it some like guidance. This is what, like, even writing the context. I want to write a post for this context. This is the outcome I want. This, it will help you. It will write it faster than you did. But this is the education that is like, hey, you need to give like the users in terms of like what is the kind of context that you can do that. So I think that was where kind of one of the examples is like this company was born because of AI and addressing that pain point. So I think I would look for your products in terms of, you know, what are the pain points that people have and how can AI assist, like kind of in that assistant. I think in the pitfalls, I would just say, like, AI does have a lot of challenges because like the models change. Are you going to build your own model? Are you going to buy the model? Like, are you going to use APIs? If you use APIs, the models change. You need to do adjustment. So it is not a straight path. You're constantly going to iterate, test, and kind of see what works and what doesn't work for your use case. So it's not a straight path. So it's kind of, again, like, don't think AI is a magic wand. It's like a great technology. I'm a believer, but you know, whether how you integrate it at work or how you use it, you kind of have to use common sense as like when it does work and when like accuracy is not there or like data biases are not there yet.
Yeah, I want to also say before Joe that I think Dean Peters, also from Productside, he was mentioned earlier, brought up a new dangerous, it's kind of like a dangerous animal that he calls the yet another chatbot. And I think it calls to mind exactly how expensive some of these might be. And Joe, please chime in.
Yeah. So one of the other ways we talk about how do we use AI, one of the ways I'm seeing it more and more is disseminating user research. So empathy interviews, you go and you interview your customers, your users, and then, you know, we talk about in the past, you used to write sticky notes and then you would do affinity maps. And that process is very time consuming. One of the ways I am seeing more and more companies using AI is coming up with those common those high level themes, those insights, those next steps. Like you can really get from, you know, all your data to those actionable next steps very quickly by using your chatbot in an effective way. And so that's, for me, that's where you can then use that data to help build out your personas that Roger was talking about. So for me, it's really about disseminating surveys. You know, if you use a whiteboard for getting feedback, or you're taking notes, or even some Microsoft tools give you the script from the interview, like literally grabbing that data and then asking it to summarize with the right context. You'd be surprised how much time you can save by using it, by helping you get to that high level understanding.
Yeah. Plus one for the power of that. So I my favorite like new trick that I use it to debate with it. So I kind of like put a point of view and kind of, well, what was the pros and cons of this point of view, and like what did I miss, or kind of like, and I kind of like go back and forth. And similar to Roger is like sometimes it doesn't get it right. So I kind of start a new chat because it's kind of like, okay, let's restart the context because, and kind of like define it. So that was my favorite, like kind of use of AI, is like kind of using it as a sounding board. Debates is like kind of thinking of like, hey, what is my blind spot? You know, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and
yeah, love it.
Thank you, Mira. So I want to switch gears and talk because we have a couple questions come in and we only have a few more minutes left. So first, let's talk about Najabat has asked, because it kind of goes into the strategy questions. They would like to have the panel's thoughts on the assumption that product managers in 2025 should have a strong focus on delivering value rather than features. And ideally that value should be both ethical and sustainable. But I think that's almost like a part 2 question. But Joe, what do you think about value versus feature delivery?
I mean, I think one of the biggest struggles every large enterprise has is how do you avoid becoming a glorified feature factory? And going back to the question a few questions ago on like the output piece of it, right? Like your resources are finite. You want to be able to demonstrate you're taking calculated risk with your investment. And so we have to get away from was it on time, to what value was delivered, what was the outcome, what was the product outcome to the user, and how is that tied to your business outcomes? Again, tying back to what we were even talking about with being a great storyteller, you've got to be able to tie back what you're doing and its value to your customer and how that value in turn will deliver an impact to your bottom line. Again, we've got to be better at that because we want to get out of that feature factory mentality.
Roger, what have you seen? Because I mean, we've seen it at Productside a lot. A lot of teams are really struggling with this pressure to just deliver, just get it out the door. And then when they get it out the door, people are very surprised that it's kind of sitting on the shelf. So how does that change in 2025?
It ties in with some of our earlier parts of the conversation. I mean, again, what Joe said, the feature factory is alive and well. We see it all the time. I was just at a client on site in Silicon Valley 2 weeks ago where, a venerable company that's been around for 50 years, right? They produce some amazing products, but how they got there is not how they need to go forward. And they definitely need to pay more attention to the customer and become more experimental so that they are testing these ideas before they spend a lot of money, right? So again, tying to the AI feature, build a storyboard, build an explainer video, put it in front of a dozen customers, get feedback. That loop, and to Joe's earlier point as well, it's not us stalling. It is us making good use of time and money, cheap, quick, fast experiments to validate, in fact, that we've got a good handle on an idea, or that's a bad idea. We shouldn't do that, right? And then we could actually save the company billions of dollars, right? Amira mentioned she worked at Microsoft. I worked at Microsoft as well. I was part of a $1.2 billion mistake. And it was for lack of experimentation and paying to changing market needs. And you don't want that. So take the time to experiment, test some ideas out, use AI as your assistant to help make that happen even faster and cheaper. And then you will get a handle on whether or not you've got real value that customers care about and then are willing to pay for. That's what you got to be doing in 2025.
And I would add to Roger, just that's where the softer skills become very important. It's not just about, yes, I'm going to just deliver it, like the projects kind of side of it is like, why? Why, what value? Why does the customer need, like just really emphasizing and like challenging even like leadership is like, why are we even doing that? So I think that's becomes very more important in today's world.
So
And if I
Amira,
could,
you did talk about soft skills, but I did want to get to the last question. And before I'm going to tell all the panelists right now, we're going to do some wrap up slides, but then I'm going to ask you for one piece of advice to share to product managers about how to set themselves up for success in 2025. So David had asked, on top of the soft skills, how critical is it for product managers to have the consulting and analytical mindset to bridge the gap between product strategy and execution? So do they need to have this? And I think this kind of ties into how we're talking about really understanding the business to be the strategy champion. What do you think about the hard skills here?
it's critical, right? You're considered a peer if you want to be viewed as someone that's strategic and you want to grow in your career, you got to speak in the language that's going to resonate with your leadership. So you've got to be articulate. You've got to be able to communicate trade-offs. You've got to work across your organization. but you have to be concise in the way that you communicate it and easily tie back to the outcomes that the organization is trying to achieve. So there's definitely that mix of the soft skills, but also being very disciplined and focused and to the point when you're tying back to the outcomes the business is trying to achieve.
Yeah, I'll just echo some of what we've been talking about today. Roger kind of brought it up first. Part of the hard skills required to truly be a strategy champion is extremely being very, very good at experimentation, because a strategy, it's a vision. Setting a vision is one thing, but getting there requires so much testing. There's so much more that you don't know, so many assumptions you're making. So those hard skills definitely are very, very important. All right, so quickly, for those of you who are still with us, just want to say, if you're looking to set your team up for success in 2025, one quick way to do that is to take our free team assessment. This team assessment takes 10 minutes or less and helps you just identify where are the biggest gaps in your product management process and maturity. Right now through January, if you take the team assessment, you're going to be entered to win one of 4 $25 gift cards, because we really want as many product leaders as possible to take advantage of this free team assessment. Our next webinar is going to be in January. So a month from now, we're going to take a break with the holidays, wishing everybody here a happy holiday wherever you are. And in January, we're going to kick it off with how to build an effective go-to-market plan to really get the most out of 2025. Kenny Kranzler and Ryan Cantwell, two of our consultants here, are going to be leading that session. And for anyone interested in upskilling themselves and getting better AI skills, better team management, leadership skills, better product management skills, we have a number of courses available, and the optimal product management and AI courses are all 10% off with a coupon code. So you can get the QR code there and check it out. And with that, I want to ask, so one piece of advice, starting with you, Amira, of how a product manager can set themselves up for success in 2025.
I would just say get started. Try delegate one task. Try it with AI, and there's a lot of free content. You can start experimenting. It's really I've been in tech for 20 years, and this is the most technology that there's lots of data and trainings. It's a lot accessible to get started. So just try one thing to start with that you can delegate from your day-to-day.
Roger?
I'm going to echo something I heard at an education conference I was at last week from the founder of redbutton.ai, Sam Stanton. Fool around to find out. FAFO. Fool around to find out. Play with your favorite chatbot every day.
Love it. And Joe?
If you're not sure that you're delivering value, use your next one-on-one with your boss, sit down with them and tell them what you think the value that you're delivering to your customers. Tell them what you think your product lines, business outcomes are. Use that to trigger a conversation with your leader, because I think that can help you even be more hyper-focused on what work you should be doing and what work you should probably put to the side.
And we have an outcome strategy discussion template. If you guys want one, check it out on the Productside website. That's a great tool. All right, thank you so much to the panelists and to our wonderful audience. Like I just said, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday break and spend some time with family, friends, and colleagues. And we are just ready to hit the ground running in 2025. Thank you. I would applaud our wonderful panelists here for today's discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
holidays, everybody.
holidays.
Happy holidays, yes.
Bye, everyone.